or feedback. And then after we do that, we're going to begin, we've actually started some of this RFQ selection on a platform, a digital platform to build our framework within. And we've actually identified a platform that we'll start working with once approved. You guys move forward. All right, so future forward, once we have approval, we've built the platform with all the resources for the teacher, the Litchfield Leader Evaluation Framework, then we'll start using it. In the winter or spring of 2026, we'll have training for the Litchfield Educator Evaluator Framework. And also, I guess I should back up a little bit, bringing it to the board, of course, as well. In the winter of 2025, the Litchfield Classified Evaluation Framework will start being built. And then with the anticipation of bringing that tool the spring of 2026, we're hoping alongside of the teacher educator framework, we'll be bringing both of those to you in the spring of 2026. In the fall of 2026, we anticipate that's when we'll begin using the teacher tool as well as the classified tool. So to kind of give you a future forward look at the cascading system that we have been working on. All right, so before we present to you the Litchfield Leader Evaluation Framework, we want to present to you the research that was used to ground the formation of the documents by the committee. So we really engaged our committee to really think about the purpose of evaluation from the spectrum of accountability to measuring growth and development. And really what we arrived on, and based on the research and based on our beliefs at Litchfield, is that really a good tool has all three components. We need to be able to measure growth. We need to be able to get information to develop our staff. And then we also need a way to hold staff accountable to their roles and responsibilities of their respective role as a Litchfield leader or a Litchfield educator. Some other critical elements that we considered as we built the foundation is really when we look at giving someone feedback to develop them or help them grow or hold them accountable, really that multiple measures of assessment. So really looking, just like we look at a student as a whole child, we also need to look at the employee as a whole person. And so looking at student achievement growth metrics as an example, department operation effective metrics, direct observation of leadership practices, stakeholder feedback, teacher, staff, and family feedback, and evidence of their own growth. And keep in mind, this is a Litchfield Leader Evaluation Framework, meaning this is for all Litchfield leaders, both on the educational side of the house and the operations side of the house. In addition, standard-based model that's aligned to the vision and mission of the organization. We spent a lot of time looking at the professional standards for educational leaders and making sure that we had those critical attributes aligned to the instrument that we were creating. And then alignment with the organizational vision and mission strategic plan is essential. That's another foundation of research. And so just as Mrs. Benjamin presented to you that we discovered the Litchfield learner characteristics and skills weren't just about our students, they were really about our staff as well, and really aligning that. What are we building here? What are we becoming? We're believing, we're belonging, and we're becoming that Litchfield learner, no matter if you're a student or you're a staff in our organization. So that's kind of looking at like the philosophical premise, like of how you create a foundational evaluation tool for that measuring growth, that development of staff, and that accountability measure. But you also have to look at when you implement that evaluation tool, what are some critical attributes you need to be aware of? That it needs to be designed with district involvement or organizational leaders, which as I presented on the slide previous, we did incorporate those stakeholders. Be educational to leaders to help them understand their leadership and what action to take to improve. So making sure, however we designed our instrument, that when we provided that feedback, that it was very specific to certain descriptors so that they can really look at what am I doing really well that can be celebrated and what are my areas that I can even get better. Be aligned to the extent practical for teacher and staff performance assessments, cascading. Just to remind anyone that's watching and the board that cascading means that really creating that common language around our instrument, that no matter what your role in the organization, that the instrument domains and indicators are similar across our organization, no matter what job that you do. And then rigorous and fair and equitable, gather evidence of performance through multiple measures of practice, communicate results with consistency and transparency, and include training, support, and evaluation. Support builds accountability, but people need to know what they're being held accountable to. So believe, belong, become the Litchfield learner is our Litchfield promise. And the committee and admin council identified as we started building our tool, what the domains would look like, and really looked at those Litchfield learner characteristics as being the domains that we would use for any employee across our organization. So to just kind of go over some common language, because common language is really important in an organization because it defines and keeps us all in line to know what we're looking for and what we're talking about. And so when we talk about the instrument, I just want to go over some common language with you. The scale is aligned to the ADE's requirements of how we communicate effectiveness for our educators and leaders, which is highly effective, effective, developing, and ineffective. That's the scale. Each domain is the Litchfield learner characteristic or skill. So communication, character, problem solving, content expert, continuous learner. So those Litchfield learner attributes. So those are our domains. And then each domain has indicators. The indicators are on the far left of the chart there. The indicators each have descriptors that fall under that indicator. And some indicators might have one descriptor, while other indicators might have a few descriptors. It just depends on what that indicator and what's included in that indicator and what we're measuring. There might be multiple measures under an indicator, or there might be several measures under a specific indicator. So just when we talk through the instrument in the next slide, just understanding domain is a Litchfield learner characteristics, indicator is under each domain, and then descriptors are what we define as the measurement for each indicator. So this is the outcome of the work. And if you'll go ahead and click on the image for me. And so as you'll see, at the top, you'll see domain 1 is communication. And first of all, let me just point out to the board, on the far left side, you'll see the document tabs. Under each tab, you'll see each domain. So as you maneuver through the document, you can look at each domain, you can see each indicator, and then the descriptors that align to those indicators. Now, this is paper, right? This is a paper format that we're presenting to you so you can understand how the language of the instrument. The instrument itself will be operationalized in a digital platform. So you can kind of imagine with me, you'll go in, you'll select an employee. In this case, we're talking about the Litchfield leaders. So you'll select your leader, their evaluation framework will populate. It'll come up with a domain. You'll pick the domain. Under the domains will be each indicator. You'll select the indicator. Under each indicator will be the descriptors. In those descriptors will be types of evidence that you can select. There'll be artifacts that you can upload that are evidence of those descriptors, and also give a score for each descriptor. So each descriptor will become a score for each indicator. And then each indicator will be averaged for an overall score for each domain. So I'm going to pause just for a second because that was a lot. And I have been saying this language for like a year and a half. So I'm going to pause for a minute and just see if you guys have any questions up until this point. And then I'll explain more. I want to actually spend some time in content expert with you all to just show you example.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions so far?
No, I'm just reading through each tab.
Okay.
Love it.
Mr. Mikes, did you have questions so far?
Yeah, just clarification. You're talking about the point system that would be in the electronic version, and you're saying so each domain is averaged out within all those descriptors that you would have, and then there's like an average score put to that.
Yes, sir. And I will show you a little bit more in the next slides of how the final calculation will be made, because there is There are some requirements from Arizona of how we have to break up where the scores can come from for leader performance as well as teacher performance or teacher evaluation, not performance evaluation.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, no questions. I like the how you explain the purpose. I really like the usage of accountability throughout. I was going to say this at the end, but I mean, I know board member Moran reviewed this, and I kind of wish board member Clymer, previous got to see this, because this is something that they've been wanting for a long time. So, yeah, knowing how much work you've put into it over the last few years, I think we're all excited to have this, but yeah, no questions.
So if you'll go ahead and click on the tab on the far left under content expert. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I'm just excited to show you content expert. All right, so if you'll click on the content expert, and if you will select the one that says principal, so it should be domain 6E, if that helps you, and then it should say principal right after. Perfect. So this is an example I just want to walk you through. So I'll let the board members get to their copy. So you're going to go to domain 6E and then it should say principal. Everybody there? Okay. So as you'll see, you have your scale at the top, highly effective, effective, developing, and ineffective. And then you'll have your domain, which in this case is content expert, a definition of what content expert means. It has the mapping for those educational standards that we already talked about. That was a foundation that we used to build this tool. And then if you keep scrolling down, you'll see the first indicator, which is, I think if my eyesight is being kind to me, it's resource expert, job and resource expert. And that is the indicator. Under that indicator, if you keep scrolling down for me, please, you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, and it keeps going. There's about 9 or 10, depending if it's principal or educational director. Well, no, there's 5 under this one. I'm sorry, 5 under job and resource expert. So each of those descriptors will have their own evidence that's attached to them, either in that portal that I talked about, that digital platform, will populate different types of evidence for educational leaders or operational leaders. And the evaluator will be able to click on that evidence and also upload evidence for that descriptor, and then give that descriptor an overall score. And then that out of 4. And then that overall score will be averaged together to give an overall score for the indicator. If you keep scrolling down, let's go all the way to the bottom, because this is really what I wanted to highlight is the blue font. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is part of Arizona's requirements is a certain percentage of educational leader, principal, or teacher evaluation is 33 to 50% of their evaluation has to come from student outcomes or student growth. And so this particular indicator is worth 33% of that final score. So when board member Mike's asked about the averaging, and I'll talk about it when we get back to the slideshow, this part is weighted differently than the rest of the instrument. It counts as 33% of the evaluation. And so I'll give you an example. The first one, which I think should be growth on benchmark. I'm going off my memory. Growth on the benchmark using our growth coefficient formula. If a principal's data comes back to be within that threshold, then they would be highly effective, developing, or ineffective based on those results. So this whole section, why I wanted to point this out, is strictly based on that quantitative evidence of student success at Litchfield for their particular school. If you're an educational leader, it's based on the district as a whole. All right, will you go back to the slideshow for me? So this slide speaks to what I've already kind of previewed for you, is that under each descriptor, there'll be types of evidence. We are still building this out, but in the digital platform, that artifacts of evidence, I gave you a little sampling in that link, and we won't click on it right now, but board members, you have that access to that, and the community does too if they want to check it out. But it just gives you so far what we generated as far as what different types of evidence would be for that descriptor to support that ineffective, developing, effective, or highly effective. Another thing that you'll find in the instrument is we took some time to define what strong evidence means, what evidence means, what some evidence mean, and what limited evidence means. So if you have a descriptor that maybe only has one measure, then how is it strong evidence is based on its consistency and so on. So you'll see there that we've spent some time as a guide for the evaluator to say, okay, if I'm looking at, am I going to call that strong evidence or some evidence? Then it gives them a guide of what attributes to look for. So I'm going to pause there before I go into my what's next slide and see if you guys have questions.
Ms. Wallace, any more questions for now?
No questions. Looks great.
Mr. Mikes?
Just I'm trying to imagine when you're using this. So under the success 33% piece, there's a whole bunch of rubric language just under success in general. So is that going to be teased out to where each one of those are individual? They'd be looking at that. The first one is the coefficient is used. And so there's that one, and that would be based on those numbers. And the second one.
Yes.
So those would then be used for the averaging.
Yes, sir. So in 6E, you might have one descriptor that's highly effective, and you could have one descriptor that is developing.
Okay.
Right. Depending on the quantitative measure that you successfully accomplished that school year.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks.
Mr. Owens? I don't have any more questions right now either. So.
No. Okay. So what's next? Woo, right? All right. So obviously having you guys review the tool, I know that you guys have, we've provided to you the last few weeks to hopefully look at and study it and see if that you are ready to approve it tonight. Complete the artifacts of evidence by descriptor. That's still work that we're going to do because we need to get more operational leaders around the table to really drill down. Also, just looking at it multiple perspectives, just making sure that we try to build the digital platform as comprehensive as possible. So it doesn't change the actual descriptors or indicators, but it's just those artifacts and that drop down we're going to build in the portal so that it's easy to check off, like we can, or generate ideas of, hey, what is evidence so that I can get better in this area? And then using the RFQ process, identify that digital platform and build that framework in the platform. Once we have the framework drafted, we've actually spent some time already doing this. I probably should have updated this from before, but we did review the growth coefficient evidence in the content expert domain. So what you see tonight is our recommendation for how we set that highly effective, developing, ineffective. When you see the growth coefficient for the benchmark, those are our solid recommendations for what they should be. Additional training for evaluators to build that inter-rater reliability. We're going to use the digital platform reporting features to monitor evaluation process and scoring. So each principal right now we're working on the Litchfield leader framework. So each evaluator of the leaders will be able to access that data. As an admin cabinet, we'll be able to access that data to look for trends, to look for opportunities to help people grow, for accountability, all that. So it's going to be really comprehensive reporting features that we can really use to make decisions. And then additional training as part of our admin council with our leaders. Continue that work around the Litchfield educator evaluation framework, and then start building the Litchfield classified evaluation framework. And then we are going to recall that committee back in the summer and maybe even invite new folks as well for some new eyes to review the Litchfield leader evaluation framework after this first year and make any changes that we feel. And then of course, bring it back to the board and let you know what we're recommending those changes to be. So these are tables that kind of, they shows you how the weights will be. As I explained, Arizona requires that a total weight of 33 to 50% has to be from that student success indicator. So 33% will be from that blue fonted area, and I made sure and I made it blue to make it a little clearer. And 67% will come from all those other indicators and domains. Operational leaders are different because they don't have that same law requirement. So 100% would be just an average of all the indicators together. But they still would be, no matter if you're an educational leader, operational leader, you're still getting the feedback on each descriptor. So you really know, where am I highly effective in that indicator? Where maybe I need to work in that particular indicator by descriptor. And then this is the overall scale. So after that's all averaged together, no matter if you're an educational leader or an operational leader, this is where the scores will fall to give you that final score of highly effective, effective, developing, or ineffective.
You're good. You were excited.
I was supposed to let Mrs. Benjamin speak. I'm sorry.
She's fine.
Clearly, she's very passionate about this. So,
President Zeidema, may I
Yes.
interject?
Please.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Doozy and Ms. Benjamin and the various team members that have participated in this process. It is very exciting, but it's been one where we've sought a lot of feedback to try to get it right. Certainly the electronic tool, as we further the process, depending upon the board's vote tonight, will just even make it more operationalized. And I think I'm excited to see the feedback that we capture from the evaluation process over time. Dr. Doozy, would you mind real quick going to the portion of the data that also has the superintendent piece for me? You know, the slide that shows the point that I'd asked Dr. Doozy just to share with you all is, and
So
we
you
put
go
it.
Back in the slideshow, sorry. Go back.
We put it so that the board could see as we move into my goals in the next particular conversation. But the idea was, when you talk about cascading, that if we're going to ask whether it's a site administrator or a district administrator or myself to be held accountable to a certain data set, that we wanted it to look similar. And so the team and I worked hard to showcase those items connected to student success that were part of my goal number one. And so I just wanted Dr. Doozy to share that so you can see how that also applies to my future work, depending upon the board's vote as well. So it's in here, so I didn't want to leave it to chance. I wanted to make certain the governing board saw that and how it reflects similar to the item that you'll see next in the agenda. So Dr. Doozy?
Benjamin.
So we looked at Dr. Davidson's goals, and we also looked at the leader evaluation framework, and we tried to build it out so that it would be consistent with a cascading evaluation framework. We want that really to start with the leader. So we wanted Dr. Davidson's, if possible, to look as close to the leaders, the teachers, and the classified staff as possible. Building this in, we can, of course, make things look a little bit different if we need to for the governing board, but we're also hopeful that you could use that same tool that we're going to be using for the online piece and gathering artifacts and evidence that way for you as well.
And then the other thing that I will note is, during our study session, you guys had mentioned some different data points that you thought were important to track from the superintendent role in the goals. And so you will find that we built the foundation of student success based on that feedback. So 8th grade, minimally proficient decreasing, highly proficient going up, 3rd grade, minimally proficient going down. So examples like that, attendance. So we tried to incorporate those multiple measures to reflect what you all also requested to see.
To add to that, Dr. Doozy, I believe if you spent some time, governing board, to look at this, or if you'd like our technology person to help us, there's 10 different indicators that would be assigned to goal one for student success. So there's a variety of data pieces, as Dr. Doozy shared, but there are 10 different pieces that in this case, I would be scored on, but if you were to look at the administrator or the leader tool, same thing holds for them.
did you have any questions, Ms. Wallace?
I did not. I have read all of the tabs fully and I love them. I think it's fantastic and I can't wait to see the tool in action with the new technology piece that is to come. I think it will be very helpful and informative, and thank you for all your hard work. It is awesome.
Thank you. It was definitely collaborative. So many people were helpful in this process.
Mr. Mikes?
I don't have any questions about about it. I mean, I really do think it's incredible. The aligned language, the process that was gone through to make sure it aligned to all the standards that were necessary, and how to make it a useful piece, a chance to have those check-ins. It looks like that's built in to be able to, for everybody to know where they are at certain moments, and that collaboration and the alignment for the mission vision of the district. I mean, it really is incredible. I mean, I'm excited for your excitement with it, and what it's actually produced for this point. And it's a great start for all the other stuff to cascade off of it. And I'm excited to see what it looks like through the usability piece with that electronic component, because I know that's going to be a massive piece as far as how well this is able to be used on putting that artifact stuff in. So I know that's another big thing that you have to go through. And then additionally, kind of getting through all the hurdles of using it for the first time as well. But that's an exciting piece to really kind of see and get that feedback and moving forward. So lots of praise for it. So thank you very much.
Mr. Owens.
So I know personally when, my performance is being reviewed, and I think everybody can agree that, you want it to be objective. And I hope that this removes that subjectivity out of the performance reviews, because the last thing we ever want is somebody saying, oh, I got a bad performance review, but my numbers, or this person shouldn't have gotten, not that we need to compare ourselves, but at the end of the day, performance matters, and we want to make sure that that subjectivity is removed from the equation. And I think that this accomplishes that goal. Like board member Mike just mentioned, I like the alignment. I like the cascading, right? Everybody's held to the same kind of standards. And so that way, that's not fair that they're not judged based on this, and student test scores are big performance indicator. So yeah, I can tell by how excited you are, both of you, that to finally have this completed. Obviously, we can roll it out. There's going to be some hiccups, but I'm sure we can overcome those, and we'll get some good feedback. So that way, if there's any changes need to be made for the next school year, we'll be ready to do it. But yeah, thank you so much.
First, I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Owens already mentioned it, but Ms. Clymer, Ms. Moran, myself have been wanting this for as long as I've been on the board. So I am super thankful for all the work. We know that this was a huge undertaking. So first of all, thank you for all of that work, and that it's going to continue to be, right, because we're going to learn and grow from this year and implementing it, and then all of the work we have to do to also have it continue to roll down to all the rest of our staff. That being said, we are going to talk about the superintendent's goals next, but we do have a thing in here for superintendent's evaluation, and they're kind of connected. So I guess my question would be, this tool that we're approving, we're going to be approving this, and it lays out all the framework beautifully for everybody, but Dr. Davidson has some additional goals that aren't so laid out easily in there. Should we be not approving his portion of this right now until we have that all broken out?
Yeah.
So that it can all be one cohesive piece.
President Ziman, certainly that could be a motion, just that we were to approve the evaluation tool, the leadership tool as presented, minus the portion in regards to my goals, because we'll be talking about that next. So that would be fine.
Okay, and I'm not saying that we aren't going to go with this, but just to make sure that the whole board can be part of that discussion. And I think that what's in there is great. And I like the, cohesiveness through everybody, the alignment. I think that's wonderful. But just so we can make sure that we do that through all of the goals, and we have a complete tool for us as a board to use, and to make sure that we are working on that, because that's one of our main jobs, right, is to evaluate the superintendent. So I want to make sure that we are all kind of a voice in what that looks like at the end, while maintaining this, wanting to have this cascading evaluation tool, and hopefully we can use the same, and that makes it easier. I would love for us to have a tool that we can use on the computer and not be some table in a Word document. So, so that was my only question, but I think this is fantastic work. I know that it was a huge undertaking. So thank you for myself, for all these board members sitting up here, for all the board members that came before that are not here, and for Ms. Moran, who would definitely be saying that, and is sad she can't say that tonight, I'm sure. with that, does anybody else have any other questions? Or if not, I can make a motion so that I say the part I want. I would motion to approve sorry, looking at the wrong. Sorry, hold on. I was looking at the wrong thing. I motion to approve the new Litchfield Leader Evaluation Framework minus the superintendent section as presented.
Second.
Having a motion for myself and a second for Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace,
Yay.
Mr. Mikes,
Yay.
Mr. Owens.
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Thank you guys again so much. And now we're going to move on to superintendent goals for the 25-26 school year, which we all kind of got to work on at our retreat, not retreat that we had recently. So yeah, extended meeting. So this will be Dr. Davidson will lead us in this discussion.
Thank you, President Zinema, members of the board, and those here with us and those out watching tonight. I don't have a big giant presentation. I certainly provided the documents for the board's review. In similar fashion, goal one remains student success, increasing student achievement. I did provide the 10 different indicators there that we just discussed. And certainly those are indicators that were discussed in our particular work session. But also those are pieces of evidence that are important to us as a district. And many of those items are reflected in our school and our district label. So that's why I wanted to ensure that we had those 10 items to review in regards to goal one. The other goals are things that we have discussed around our work within our special education department, within our work in our communications department and communication, external communication, as well as goal 4 and 5 regarding the evaluation tool and process, and certainly financial responsibility and stewardship. The way I had it written, because there is still a very unique piece to my role as superintendent, goals and completion of goals and action steps do connect to performance pay a little bit differently than our other educators. So I provided that information to the board as well to demonstrate that no matter what evaluation tool we use, we still need to have the opportunity for the board to weigh in on my success or lack thereof in regards to these goals. So wanted to make certain you had a little bit of a piece on how we would be potentially working through that with weights assigned to the goals themselves. So I will stand for any questions, conversation. And I know in the work session as well, we did talk about potentially modifying the evaluation tool. And with the board's most recent vote, that's something we can look at doing if the board so wishes, actually designing my tool to look similar to the tool that we just presented on behalf of the Litchfield learner characteristics. So I'll stand for questions or conversation. Thank you.
Ms. Wallace, I'm actually going to start with you to see if you had any questions because you were not when we were doing the goals, but now you've had a chance to look at them. So if there's anything that you specifically wanted to talk about in the goals, now was a great time to do that.
No, I have read over them all and they all, like last year, seem like a heavy load. But if that's what we're taking on, then here we go. I'm excited for all the things we're going to work towards.
Mr. Mikes, did you have any questions right now?
Yeah, I mean, I had some questions with mainly kind of the first part, the student success piece with the rubric and everything. And I see the alignment with of course, with the framework that we're building out. And I like the idea of us maybe looking at tackling that for this year to align a superintendent's evaluation to that. There was a couple things that I was just trying to make sure I had clarity as far as what's being measured for the student success pieces. And I was just trying to go back and compare what we were measuring the year prior. And so if I look, for instance, the first one for reading, that's all inclusive grades 2nd through 8th this time, or is it broke down to, I mean, and that's a question I kind of have throughout most of them. We had teased out in the other ones where it was just an 8th grade score, just a 3rd grade score for state assessment data, and then also benchmark data was broken out. And it seems like we're kind of packaging all that together now. Am I reading that correctly?
Now, the way I would understand it, Mr. Mikes, is that if there is not a specific grade level there, the score that I would present would be based on the grade levels that partook in that assessment.
Okay. All right. Okay. So and that was just a clarification for a shift from what we had, which I'm good with. This might be a silly question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. Is the cadence? Is that K5 we use the data? And okay, and that's what I was trying to clarify that piece, because I know we just focused, for instance, last year just on the K2 piece, but once again, it's all K5.
And Mr. Mikes, if you're okay, I'd like Ms. Benjamin or Dr. Duzey just to speak to how we use the Acadians data, because it is a very select piece of data with some of our lower grade level.
So we use Acadians data by law for ADE. It is required for a move on when reading for kindergarten through 3rd grade students. We also use it for 4th and 5th. It does help to provide some diagnostic information very quickly 3 times a year for our teachers and staff. And then we're able to provide intervention for those students, whether that is in the classroom tier 2 or pull out tier 3 with a reading specialist.
All right. Thank you. For the 4th piece, that's for the state math 8th grade is what it seems like. And I was just reading through that second part for effective, and it uses the and or piece with it. And I don't know if we need to change the language of that, but if it's and, then technically that becomes highly effective. Then it would read the way highly effective is read for 4, because we're shooting for a decrease in minimally proficient and a increase of highly proficient. So to hit both of those, and then the effective piece reads and or. So I'm just wondering, and that's just wordsmithing stuff that I just want to make kind of clarity for it.
It could be either, is why, Dr. Davidson, I think that's what he's asking. That's okay. So you're talking about 8th grade math.
Yeah,
correct?
sure. The fourth
So it is,
8th grade math.
I'm going to students, yes, that one. 8th grade math.
yes. So
Yeah, sorry,
it's
Dr.
either.
Davidson. I should probably be a little bit more helpful of where I'm talking. Okay.
So I guess maybe the wordsmithing should be or.
Yeah, that's just what I'm thinking. I mean, and I know this is potentially where we're voting for it or not, but I just wanted to make sure that's clear. Then I would just move over to highly effective if it was and.
I believe with the board's permission, certainly that can just simply be or, because it is the alternative, one or the other.
Okay. Some of the other kind of questions, and maybe this is just alignment for information we have, because I always look at where the growth is on highly effective or effective, and we have a 1% growth or a 2% growth listed, or whatever the coefficient, and sometimes I want to, of course, make sure that they're realistic goals that we have, but sometimes I'm like, okay, well, what did we have that last year? So I guess what I'm asking is, when we are, officially looking at this, we see the data comparison where, what we had as opposed to where we're going. For instance, 2%, if we have or a 3% growth for ELA for proficiency, is that a reach for the stars type of thing? Is that something within our grasp? Those are those questions that kind of pop in my mind when we're looking at this stuff.
And certainly, Mr. Mikes and governing board members, we can have further detailed conversation if we wish. From a year-to-year perspective, we are definitely looking at the data as it comes back and building goals based on those particular individual grade levels, or a school as a combination. For this evaluation process, we certainly looked at how we did, but when you haven't seen the full data set, some has been shared, and it happens every year. Some grades are higher than others, some drop, some high. And so we try to find a balance, also using the data, not just from Mr. Owen, but from my last evaluation, where, if you remember, we had certain percentages that were seen as growth or maybe remain the same or went backwards. We tried to use that as kind of a scale. And I guess my additional is if we were to grow, whether it's 2% or 3% or meet certain benchmarks such as that growth, if we were to do that across the board and that happened, A++ district,
sure.
right? So we kind of set that bar far out there, knowing that if I were to be highly effective in every single category, we'd be that'd be the greatest place possible.
And some of that's my clarification with it, because I see 3% and I don't know. I mean, I know you guys, I know it's just not a random number you would
Right.
pick out of from there, but just kind of make, understanding that piece. And it kind of goes along. I'm sorry. Sorry, goes along with the last kind of question I have with number 9 when we talk about the average daily attendance rate, one of the goal that you have. When I see a breakdown of 95% to 90% to 85%, when we looked it up, I see we were at 94.64% is what we had last year. And so I guess I sit back and highly effective on the grand scheme of things. I mean, once again, is that 94.64% seems like it's outstanding. I'm not saying that we ever want to sit back and just be fine with it. But of course, I want to make sure going, is highly effective, is it 93% and higher? I mean, and that's one of the other questions I had as far as, getting that that percentage of 95 or versus 90%. So just the clarification on that piece.
Yeah, I guess we utilize, and I say we, because certainly this is a conversation with some of the team members here, but utilize 95% as kind of that gold standard, that if we can get above that, and because essentially that means it could vary, but the intent would be that every single one of our schools was increasing their attendance to bring us up as a whole over 95%. But that one certainly can be discussed and talked about.
Okay. Part of this is just me making sure, I look at it and I say, 95% sounds good to me, but, is in comparison for a highly effective district or evaluation, should be different, but it's kind of it's a touch and go piece of going, do we lower that, percentage goal? I'm not trying to say that, try to say that completely, but just making sure, the attainability piece of it. So
Dr. Doozy, you want to add to that at all?
Yes, so our schools that are achieving that 95% or higher are also our schools that are having the highest impact on student growth and achievement. So when we look at that 95% across, then if we can get all our schools and as a district to average out to be above 95%, then it's our belief that we're leading to better student success results. And then you were asking about the 3%. And I think Dr. Davidson elaborated on this, but we worked with Mr. Owen to look at trends for many, many years of our state achievement data. And we looked at pre-COVID rates, and we really said, if we want to get some of those rates back again, because we have declined since then, in the next 4 years, we would like to see a 12% difference in our overall student achievement. So it's practical to achieve a 3% growth as a highly effective leader to get to that 12% as a district in the next 4 years. So that's some of the foundational discussion of how we came up with a 3%, in addition to looking at what has been the trend across the district of growth and what's practical, because there is a difference. Just because you don't have the 3% growth doesn't mean you're not effective. But if we truly are going to call a leader highly effective, then we need to have growth that's beyond what is normal growth.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, those are the main questions I had for that piece. Everything else with the goals, I mean, they're big things to tackle and lots of variables in there. And I do notice that some of them there might be some action pieces that we'll be able to move forward with on some of those goals throughout the year. And then there's some stuff where we're creating a plan that's going to be implemented the next year, I know, with wording and everything like that. So I think those look like really big goals to hit, and it's gonna be exciting to see where we go with that. But I appreciate the clarity with all that other stuff. It's helpful for me when I look at that rubric.
For sure. Okay, Madam President, real quick.
Mhm.
Mr. Mike, you spoke to, attainability. And And I would always love to say that without a doubt, we will attain the highest level of proficiency in this evaluation or in this goal, in particular, student success piece, that without a doubt, we are highly effective. But certainly there's a lot of variables in this, and we recognize that, whether it's just the student performance themselves, our connectedness to our community, and how our families are working alongside us, the hard work of our teachers and our principals. And so as we talk as an admin cabinet, and certainly with our team, these are really district goals, that yes, again, mine tied to performance pay a little bit differently than others, but this is a we are all in this together scenario. So I just want to highlight that, and our team recognizes that as well.
Yeah, great.
Can I ask a follow-up question before we have Mr. Owens, about Mr. Owen being part of this discussion for those 3%, those things? He says this is attainable. And the reason I ask that, just to let you know why I'm asking, is because we've been told so many times, like, that having 3% growth is like crazy, unrealistic, can't happen kind of thing. So I love that we're going to shoot for the stars here. That's great. I want to know, are we setting realistic goals? Again, they can be like our stretch goals. That's good for me, but I just want to make sure there's something that we can achieve and we're not setting anyone up for failure.
Highly,
Go ahead.
It's that.
Setting realistic goals. Again, they can be like our.
Okay, she's turning it back to me. So to that point, President Zeidelman, I guess what I would share is, as we look at my evaluation and our abilities to have our students achieve, or whether it's attendance or what have you, you could probably say the highly effective piece, in all seriousness, was in some cases were stretch. Like, just using the conversation we've had with Mr. Owen before. When you look at the one right beside it, if you were to give me points on being effective, those scores also will demonstrate that we're doing good work and our kids are doing great things. And as we talked with the leader evaluation, this is very similar in that I would have scores across each indicator. So it's possible that I got a 3 as an example in one of those. Maybe we had some 4s and potentially a 2 or somewhere in there, but it'll all come together at the end to give us a score that balances and puts me in a particular category there. But I guess I still believe we can obtain it. But to Dr. Duzzi's point, the highly effective portion, year over year, we might have to come back and talk about that as we see how our kids do and how our schools do. But I think the conversation at the end of the day will be around the overall performance that you rate me. This is one indicator that's pretty clear from a category perspective. The others give a little bit of balance, but I think that's what we'll determine is being an effective leader. Is that good? Is that good enough? Or is the demand to be highly effective across the board? And if so, do we keep those stretch goals or do we modify those over time?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Owens.
Yeah, so I think the last time we went over your performance goals, I kind of basically asked you a simple question of, will these goals that you've created hold you accountable for your for this district's performance? Because while we had input from the teachers and administrators and stuff for their performance goals, at the end of the day, you get to write your own goals. So if you're highly effective and this district reflects that, then will you be rewarded? And at the same time, if this district somehow, shows ineffectiveness, will that also be demonstrated in your performance? I mean, because we're going to know it, but if you're one or the other and this doesn't reflect that, then it's not accurate, right? So do you feel like this is accurate and it will hold you accountable?
I would say yes, sir, across the board. And I think also when you look at the way we connected performance pay, this goal 1 being at 30%, that's a significant. So yes, sir, if we're rocking and rolling and I'm getting highly effective marks across those 10 indicators, that'll be indicative of the work that every single employee in our district is doing.
Thank you.
Okay, my only other question, and this is really to my fellow board members, is they broke down the different percentages based on the goals of what the performance pay will go to. And so is everybody comfortable with that breakdown that they did? Because we didn't talk about that. So there's the breakdown of what the percentage for the performance pay goes to for each of the 5 goals that there are. And so it's like the 30% for goal 1, 20% for goal 2 and goal 3, and then 15 for goal 4 and goal 5. Are we feeling that's the best way to do that? Because we didn't talk about that at this
Madam
extended
President,
meeting. Yes, go ahead.
if I can add, please, just to the conversation on that, the rationale for the weights, certainly student achievement, student success being the biggest, that's that is most important to me. The other 2, goal 2 and 3 are newer goals, and have some action steps. So we're just starting. So I gave those a little bit more weight versus goal 4 and 5, which are important goals, but are kind of continuation goals from last year. So that was my rationale for presenting it that way. But again, I'll certainly stand for conversation and change things as needed.
Michelle, did you have?
No, I was gonna say, I feel like the weight is correct based on the work in each goal and the amount of evidence that will need to be looked at for each goal. I feel like the weight is accurate.
Okay. Mr. Mikes.
Yeah. And after the clarification, I mean, the weight, once again, I always sit back and go, okay, where do we come up with these percentages and numbers? That makes sense to me as far as what's being tackled with it. So that answers my questions I have.
Mr. Owens.
Yeah, I agree. The quantifiable student success data should be the most weighted. And then, yeah, I have no issues with any of the other ones.
Okay. I don't either. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that. So what we need to do is what's on here is that we could possibly approve the goals, but it's got the breakdown in here. And I don't know if we're doing that since we are going to put the specific breakdown stuff on hold. Well, we're going to discuss it at another meeting. So in approving, like what's on the agenda is to approve the goals and the performance pay breakdown, but the goals have the breakdown that goes from their evaluation tool that we just looked at prior. And since we did not do this section of it for the goal 1, are we wanting to approve that in it anyways, or want to approve the goals minus the breakdown?
Well, I mean, when I'm looking initially, when I came in here, as far as the breakdown of everything, I got getting some clarity was nice for some of that information. I mean, I look at the subheading, I was like, oh, what is it? Is it, math, where's the subheading for each one? But that's just putting in those pieces. I mean, and if we fix that one and or piece, I feel pretty good about this one. I think moving forward, I think, and like I said before, and as mentioned, I think if we sit down as a board this year and look at a way to tackle this and work on our version to align to the district's piece to where we're measuring the highly effective piece along with, obviously goals 3 through 5 are measured on a different piece. But if we can have this all inclusive evaluation thing, if the board would be able to tackle that, that would be great. But then, for this piece here, this looks good to me.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments about that? Okay, then if somebody wants to make a motion, or unless Dr. Davidson, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
The only thing I'd add, Madam President and Mr. Mikes, would be the answer is yes, even though it wasn't a question. The answer is yes to us working together to align our tool for me to be more closely to the leadership tool we just adopted. One of the characteristics for our Litchfield learner is content expert. And I would ask that the board, as we look at this, these 5 goals are kind of my demonstration of being the content expert. So this is for all practical purposes the scorecard for me that I would use and certainly communicate as we talked about throughout the year on these goals and action steps. So just know we're already kind of leaning towards us going through that process with the board's blessing over time.
Okay. If someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the superintendent goals and performance pay model for the 25-26 school year as presented.
I second.
Having a motion for Mr. Owens and a second for Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to discussion item 10.1, mandatory reporting and other law changes for the 25-26 school year. This is going to be by Dr. Ducey and Moss. Okay, we're going to move on.
All right. Good evening, President Zaidama, Governing Board, Cabinet, and community members. Tonight, Director Moss and I are going to present the law and changes policy updates. The clicker working now? Let's see. The law and policy updates that we're providing is aligned to our strategic plan in the keystone of readiness to ensure that we have our day-to-day operations for our protocols and procedures, as well as any unexpected events. So the purpose of the presentation is twofold, and we're preparing you to complete a first read of the trust policy updates for some specific law changes. President Hobbs signed some specific laws that affect districts. Not President, Governor Hobbs, sorry. The concerning student use of wireless communication devices during the school day, mandatory reporting requirements, handling directory information regarding students. This legislation will take place in 90 days after legislation session ends, which is approximately in October. The Arizona School Risk Retention Trusts, which are now our policies, have issued the following the policy review that we're going to provide to you this evening. So the first one I'll start with is House Bill 2484. I'll just highlight four main key elements of this law that's going to impact us as a district. First of all, it requires school districts to restrict student access to wireless communication devices, including social media platforms during the school day. This includes lunches and transitions. The district must follow the expectations that the kiddos still have access to communication for emergency use, medical needs, or educational purposes. This is typically defined in a student's IEP or 504 plan that they need access to this technology. District procedures must also allow the student to have parent-guardian communication. And what this means is access to a telephone or with permission to be able to communicate with their parent. To address these requirements, the trust is proposing the first read that you do have in your packet tonight, Policy 3-403, as well as Policy 5-305, and also the procedures that go with both of those. I will comment that this won't be a big change for Litchfield, as we have already adhered to students having their cell phones off or in their backpacks, and we do not have them use their cell phones during school hours. The one thing is that educational purpose, so just making sure that if a teacher has identified an educational purpose for the use of a cell phone, that is defined in a student's IEP or 504 plan. So I'll pause just for a minute and take any questions on the wireless communication changes.
Did you have any questions, Ms. Wallace?
No, no questions.
Mr. Mikes?
I have no questions.
Mr. Owens? I have no questions either.
All right. The next area is mandatory reporting changes, which is Senate Bill 1437, and I'm going to let Director Moss present this information to you.
Good evening. So in this mandatory reporting changes that were brought about by Senate Bill 1437, it really is just adding clarification and also expanding in one area. So the clarification in short is just saying that We're no longer reporting these offenses, child offenses, to your SRO or SSO, your school resource officer or school safety officer, is no longer meeting the requirement of the ARS 133620, the mandatory reporting. It requires us to specifically report it to law enforcement directly. So even though your school resource officer might be law enforcement and your SSO might be for that agency that covers your jurisdiction, it does not meet the requirement. It has to go specifically to that precinct which the school resides in. So saying we're doing mandatory reporting for Western Sky, that has to go to Goodyear PD. Even though your SRO or SSO might be Goodyear PD, it has to go to the precinct. And then that precinct may assign it to that officer on that campus. The next clarification, give me a second. The other clarification was that if the mandatory reporting does not involve parents or guardian, that also goes directly to law enforcement, where the option was DCS or law enforcement. But if the abuse does not involve the parent or guardian, that goes directly to law enforcement. And then the one expansion to this mandatory reporting is that now school board members are included as the educational professionals required for mandatory reporting. So if we have a parent, for an example, parent comes up or a student comes up at the end of a meeting or during a meeting and shares some information that proves suspicion of neglect, you are required to do the mandatory reporting, which we'd help you through.
Just a quick question. There's no change in behavior for the reporting process we had. I mean, we didn't just heavily rely on giving SRO information and then just leaving it as is anyway. I mean, this is trying to take that out and making sure we're going direct to the precincts. I mean, there's no behavior change that we have of how we've been operating normally.
We have not been using our SSOs as a mandated reporting. Yes, because typically it's not, well, there are times they are from the same jurisdiction as the school's location. So there would have perhaps been a time that maybe the SRO that we had, because they did currently work in that jurisdiction, that the school may have felt that reporting it to the SRO and getting an incident report would have fulfilled our mandated reporting obligation. But now we have to call the non-emergency number, report it, and they may very well assign it to that SRO or that SSO if they are in that jurisdiction, but it has to go through the non-emergency dispatch first now. So it really offers that clarity to make sure that it's clearly documented in the same way every single time. And then also part of this new law is one other caveat is also you're also as board members mandatory reporters for unprofessional conduct to ADE. So just know that that's also something that's part of that report. And then you'll find the first read of these policies in your packet. And so where you'll find where the trust has made these revisions is 4-204. As well as 5-401.
Dr. Ducey, may I add, please? Governing board members, what our intent will be next would be to work alongside Director Moss and Dr. Ducey to create just some protocols of sorts, so that you have the information of what to do, what steps to take as a mandatory reporter as it relates to either personnel matters or child welfare concerns. So we'll make certain we build that out and provide you just a template so you're never put in a tough situation.
All right, and I'll pause before we go on to the next.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mikes?
None for me.
Mr. Owens? I don't have any questions. Thank you.
There's an additional House bill called 2514, which changes the way that we disclose director information and annual notification. And so the four basic changes in this law is it used to be the director information was released unless the parents let us know that it wasn't to be released. So it was an opt-out. And now we have to get permission to disclose. So an example of director information would be like sharing student information with PTOs or PTSAs or things like that. That's now we have to get parent permission to do that. So It still doesn't change our legal obligations to provide directory information like student addresses, names, phone numbers, for situations that are required under state or federal law, which were, are things like DCS or police investigations, those type of things. We're still required by law to provide certain information in certain situations. Our student information department is working on these protocols. It won't go into effect, like I said, until October, but we will provide an update in the Friday update, exactly the protocols that we're going to use. But we are bringing the first read of this policy to you tonight, which is policy 1-401, policy 5-303, and then also the accompanying procedure to 5-303. And I think that covers it. So I'll open up to any questions.
Ms. Wallace, did you have any questions?
So for this one, are we going to be sending something to parents to allow them to opt into this, or will it just be an automatic like opt out, like for the PTO type email?
We have to get permission to release in the information. So you will know, so we'll come up with a method for parents to give us approval. It's similar to how we ask parents to give, what I'm imagining, student information will come up with a plan. And I know that Mrs. Benjamin's also been working with student information as well in this, so you can definitely chime in if you have more details than I do. But it's similar to the photo, like getting parents to say it's okay to, photograph your child and put it on website or whatever. Very similar to that. Now we're required to ensure that we have documentation of all parents giving us permission versus we have permission unless you tell us we don't.
Understood. No other questions.
Mr. Mikes?
None for me.
Mr. Owens? So this will be in effect for us because we're gonna do first read tonight and then we're gonna do a second read at our next meeting. So this will basically be in effect for us from the beginning of school, even if the law doesn't take effect until October. What is that? I want you to kind of clarify what some of that information might be, because I'm thinking from a parent leader perspective, or just even a volunteer coming in on picture day and getting a whole list of all the students in a classroom. Is that breaking some rule, or is that, what kind of training are we going to give our schools? Because the PTAs and PTOs will get student information for fundraisers and all various kinds of things, right? So
Yes.
it's seeming like a really big headache.
Yes. So under current laws, on our bullet 2, it kind of clarifies what the difference is. Districts may disclose directory information if the district has designated items as directory information. So right now, what directory is like the students' names, what clubs they're in, kind of like yearbook information. So that's the type of information now that's considered directory. So we'll just need to make sure that we have permission from the parents that we can release that information. So you're right. It is a pretty big change, but we do have some time to get in line with the law, like I said, because it doesn't go into effect till October. But you're right. You're going to be doing the second read for the policy, but we will have time to get our ducks in a row and make sure everyone's trained properly with the proper procedure.
Okay, so then my next question is, do we want to not be so quick to approve our second read on this one so you have time? Because my concern is that if this is our policy, we should be following it.
Yeah.
And if we're not ready yet and we have some time, maybe we need to flush that out.
So maybe what we could do, if it's agreeable to the board, is we won't bring this particular policy back for your second read and approval until we are able to articulate our exact plan and our exact, everything is set up.
I don't have a problem with that. That's not a bad idea.
Mr. Owens, everybody? Okay. We're good with that. Okay, we're good with that.
This is just an overview of each of the changes. It's just a different way to look at the information. This is also in your packet. So that just shows you the policy, procedures, and forms. Remember, we moved from ASBA to trust. So now our policy has always been policy, but our regulations are now procedures and our exhibits are now forms. So I just put this in your packet just so that you're aware of what's changing and kind of the order, and then a brief summary at the bottom. Just makes it a little simpler to look at. And this is right from the trust, so I'm not wordsmithing it at all. And I think we already went through all the questions, so, okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
for this
Thank you.
information. Now we're going to move on to our first reads of all these policies. For 10.2, this will be Dr. Ducey.
All right, so as we already went through the presentation, because those were some pretty significant changes, we won't always present our first read and second reads in that way, but because those particular policies are changing some significant practices for Litchfield, we did choose to present it in that way to the board tonight. But 10.2 is our first read of Trust Policy Chapter 1, Sections 1-401, Parent, Legal Guardian Rights, and Education. So you have that in your packet. Now that you've processed it a little more, any questions?
Any questions, Ms. Wallace? Mr. Mikes?
None.
Mr. Owens?
No questions.
No questions.
10.3 is Trust Policy Chapter 3, Section 3-403, the technology, which is the cell phone, social media. Any questions now that you've processed the presentation?
Ms. Wallace?
No questions.
Mr. Mikes?
None.
Mr. Owens?
No questions.
No questions.
10.4, first read, Trust Policy Chapter 4, Section 4-204, mandatory reporting. Any questions?
Ms. Wallace?
No questions.
Mr. Mikes?
None.
Mr. Owens?
No questions.
No questions.
10.5, first read, Trust Policy Chapter 5, Section 5-303, student records. Any questions?
Ms. Wallace?
No questions.
Mr. Mikes?
None.
Mr. Owens?
No, ma'am.
Nope, no questions.
10.6, first read, Trust Policy Chapter 5, Section 5-305, Student Code of Conduct, which aligns to the technology law changes. Any questions?
Ms. Wallace?
No questions.
Mr. Mikes?
None.
Mr. Owens?
No, ma'am.
I have no questions. Thank you for all of the information. Okay, somebody want, or that's it, guys. We finished our business.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Having a motion for Mr. Owens and a second for Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
I am also a yay. Motion passes. Thank you for joining us. This meeting is adjourned.